The importance of exports to the U.S. beef industry has been well documented, and the U.S. Meat Export Federation works hard every day to increase global demand for our product. Joining us now is Dan Halstrom, President and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Dan, thanks for coming and giving us a few minutes of your time.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Let's talk 2024 for a minute and give us a recap of beef exports this past year.
Yeah, 2024, we're going to finish it out tomorrow. Stats for December come out tomorrow, but it's looking to probably be our second largest export year ever on value. 10.5 billion is our estimate, which is up 5 or 6% from a year ago. And I think the real significance of that is if you compare to where we were talking about a year ago, we were estimating to be 5 to 10% down. And a lot of that had to do with reduced production, which a lot of that didn't happen. But quite frankly, the first half of 2024 was a bit of a challenge, especially in Asia economically. But we saw a significant rebound in the last half of 2024, which, like I said, we're going to end up being in pretty good shape for the year.
That's great news. And I know there's lots of policy winds and macroeconomic winds blowing, but what's your projections for 2025 as it relates to beef exports?
Well, I think 2025, cautiously optimistic is probably the way I would phrase it. And our estimate's down 2 to 3% on volume and probably steady to maybe up slightly on value. But there's so many unknowns, right? One thing I can tell you is that beef demand has been phenomenal and really in a lot of markets around the world. So the opportunity is there. We just have to execute.
You read the same report I did, and certainly we're looking at record low beef cow numbers, over 70-year lows. We've experienced record high beef prices this last year, well over $8 retail here in the United States. How have those factors impacted our global exports?
Well, Kevin, anytime you have shorter supplies and higher prices, it's a bit of a concern, right? And the last several years, that's been the case. Yeah. Every year I ask our staff around the world, are we reaching that threshold on spending power? And so far the answer has been no. Demand, honestly, in 40 years in the business, demand is as good as I've ever seen it. And I'll use an example. There's markets out there which we used to refer to as emerging markets. Okay. Mexico being one. Central America region being another, a place like Guatemala. And what's happening today is the question we're getting out of these markets is not why are your prices so high. The question is when will we see more production? Wow. They want to understand the cycle. They want to understand what it takes to expand. They know what's going on. And I think the fact that it's more price inelastic than it used to be is significant. Wow. Whoever heard of a 332 choice cutout, Guatemala paying the price or Mexico? Wow. And that's the case today. And I think we have our mainstay customers like Japan and Korea like we've always had, but these new emerging regions are really helping drive demand.
That's so exciting and so encouraging and provides so much so much great tailwind for the beef industry. One last question. How do you and your staff work every day to help address the international demand and needs for U.S. beef?
Well, I think one of the keys is our international infrastructure. We have offices in 18 regions around the world, about 100 staff outside the U.S. And their main thing, two main things that they're working on every day. Number one, education, telling our story. How are we different? How is our quality better? What about our safety, which is world renowned? Telling that story, explaining it in detail around the world, right? And number two is we're talking about the value and the options of U.S. beef, the taste differentiation. This is and promotion. Yeah. Promotion and education, that's what we do, and that's what we'll continue to do. Markets go up, markets go down, but we're looking at the long-term vision to develop these markets.
And you're doing a great job. The last I heard, $411 or $420 per head of value you're creating, is that correct?
Exactly right, yep. And it's been stair-stepping up over time. It was just 10 years ago when we were $300 a head, so it takes time, and it's not just MEF, it's industry effort. I mean, the producers, your viewership are producing some of the highest quality products in the world, and that makes it much easier for us to market it.
It's outstanding news. Thank you so much for all you and your whole staff do on behalf of the United States beef producers.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
To learn more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation and its efforts to enhance U.S. beef demand overseas, visit their website. That's usmef.org. usbeef.org.